Welcome back. It's time to go in depth. There is much controversy in Jamaica's high realms as the debate continues over the ethical, political and business motivations behind the National Housing Trust NHT's acquisition of the Outameni attraction in Trelawney. The government and the NHT says it was the land surrounding the property that was purchased and the business was a secondary acquisition. The opposition Jamaica Labour Party says the purchase was an ill-advised waste of funds that should have been used to purchase lands for contributors. During those war of viewpoints, the Prime Minister, to whom the NHT director reports, says she wasn't aware of the acquisition until after it was done. That declaration further escalated the controversy. Joining me to discuss the issue is a current member of the NHT board, Senator Lambert Brown and Aubyn Hill, chairman of the JLP Economic Advisory Council. Welcome, Mrs. Brown and Hill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, now Mr. Brown, we begin with you. What was the main motivation behind the purchase of the Outameni property and its adjoining lands?
The National Housing Trust owns significant property in northern Trelawney. That's on the northern coast of Jamaica. And we got an offer to buy a property consisting of 9.12 acres of land and buildings on it for $180 million. Valuations done show that the property was valued at over $311 million. This land fits right into the NHT plan for expansion to build out houses in the area and to replicate what is in Kingston, what is called the Emancipation Park, or from the Pegasus Hotel in Kingston, a beautiful 5 acres of land there that has been turned into a park, that we could turn that into a park for the people of Western Jamaica, given the fact that right now there are over 5,000 houses lined up to be built in that section of the country, and many of those houses have been purchased by people living abroad, so that the demand for those houses is there. And anybody who come to Jazz Festival would know that across from the stadium there's about 1,000 houses there. Just down from the stadium, a large number of houses being built. So this is a growing area. Where Does the Children Play is a song that John Jones sang many years ago in this country. Park, green facility is what motivated my vote there. I want to make it clear, we did not buy a tourist attraction business. We did not buy the business. We bought the property. And anybody who wants to find where the facts are, just ask for a copy of the sales agreement, because the sales agreement tells you what we bought.
So where does the Outameni attraction fit into the wider lands that were bought?
We didn't buy the Outameni attraction. We weren't interested in it in 2012. We clearly had interest in the land and the property we bought, and the property in all the buildings. We bought that. So that there's no way that we bought the Outameni attraction, and that is why Mr. Henry Littlewhite in July 2013 was upset when he was asked to remove his equipment connected to Outameni experience from the property. So it was very clear to us. Now, in recent times, there have been a discussion, what can we do before we build out the Emancipation Park with the buildings so that we don't have to mothball them? And that discussion has not been concluded. But my friends in the opposition have felt that they want to take this and to make a controversy out of it. And the sad part of it is to see Mr. Audley Shaw, the spokesman on finance of the opposition, squirming and ducking today because he said that the government had bailed out through the Development Bank of Jamaica the Outameni property. It turned out that the bailout process that he's speaking about started in March 2011 when he was Minister of Finance and Mr. Bruce Golding was the Prime Minister. Today Mr. Shaw is saying, oh, I didn't even know that was so. Shame on him.
All right, Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill?
Let's start off with the shame. I think it's a shame that the Prime Minister didn't know that this transaction was going on, that Mr. Brown now sees as a shame with people on the other side. But let's get to the transaction. One of the problems that we have is that in October, late October, I think, the chairman, or some days after that, the chairman of the National Housing Trust, a former minister in the PNP administration, said that the NHT had bought the business. Those are his words. They were on the air. And then later on in Parliament, the Prime Minister said they bought only the land. Now, if you're only going to buy the land is 9.125 acres, as Mr. Brown just said. To pay $180 million for 9 acres of land of that caliber is amazingly incredulous to me. When Mr. Brown's colleague, Mr. Norman Horn, and another board member of the NHD, who is also the treasurer of the People's National Party, just a few minutes ago on another radio program was heard to say that the NHT had lands of at least 750 acres in one plot. So if you need 7 acres, Emancipation Park is 5 acres. If you want 10 acres, right, take 10 acres out of that land and build your park. I mean, they're paying $180 million for the land. What we know, Mr. Brown is now saying is on the land.
I didn't say it was on the land. I said it was land and
Gentlemen,
building.
Just a minute, let me finish, sir. I didn't interrupt you. The land.
I didn't tell the truth.
Mr. Brown, Senator Brown, I did not interrupt you. I will listen to you. Please listen to me. The plan also is publicized to spend another $111 million on developing. So you're talking about 300 million there, give or take. You can use a lot less money than 300 million to develop a nice park on 10 acres of land that you already own. The last thing I want to point out is that this $180 million that is paid to take off Mr. Lenny Littlewhite's debt is also equivalent to the amount that was the debt owed to Capital and Credit by the Outameni owner, and therefore was, in a sense, a dual bailout of both Mr. Lenny White and to clear a debt from Capital and Credit.
You said that was
now, I don't understand why that would be done at all when the NHG has all the land it needs to make a park or community space if they want to do it.
now, Mr. Hill, Mr. Brown will get to your concern in a bit, but Mr. Hill, does the Outameni experience and its lands have potential to be beneficial to contributors?
You know something there? That's a call that so clearly a private set of business people thought would have been the case, and all they did was make perennial losses out of this. I don't know that it will be. It might very well be, but now I hear Mr. Brown, and I'm willing to take him at his word, that they want to develop a community space in that area. They have more than enough land and could spend much less than $300 million to do it.
You know, Mr. Hill is trying to regurgitate the views of one commentator on a radio program a short while ago, which was so misinformed. Let me start, Mr. Hill, with some facts. And if you look at the valuation, you'll see that the land on the property is valued at $12 million, not $180 million. It is the buildings in addition to the land that comes to $180 million. You as a banker, Mr. Hill, knows that when the bank is trying to collect its debt, right, it negotiates a price. That 180 is not a bailout of Mr. Hill and a bailout of somebody else. Of Mr. Leonard Littlewhite and a bill. It's a price we paid for the land and the building. So that the balance sheet of the National Housing Trust will show an appreciation in its asset right now. In respect to the issue of the cutting up the land that is already zoned, designed, which have been done, it would not have been the wisest decision. And where the Outameni experience property is, that is what we determine to be the best deal. I just want to make one thing clear. Mr. Bruce Golding, the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, said he knew nothing about and it was never reported to him, the 2011 decision by the DBJ. So there's no shame if the Prime Minister didn't know. In fact, Mr. Bruce Golding, as Portfolio Minister for the Housing Trust, didn't receive any report, and the Permanent Secretary was under Mr. Golding at the time, and now Permanent Secretary under Mrs. Simpson-Miller, said in her time she has never seen a report from the NHT about any land transaction. And I can assure you that there have been over 400 transactions carried to the board of the NHT over several years in recent time, including Mr. Golding time, and not a single one of them was reported to the Prime Minister or the Portfolio Minister. I just want to state those truths.
All
so
right,
that
Mr. Brown?
if we have those truths, the country needs to understand we did not buy a business, we bought the property. And we have use for the property. It's a wise investment. It has added to the assets of the National Housing Trust. And Mr. Hill, I'd urge you, just go and get the facts now, because what
Mr. Brown,
you said a while ago is not based
Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown?
Yes, madam?
Yes, in continuing with your point, does the NHT have any plans at all to venture into the business of Outameni?
There's a feasibility study being done to see why did it fail. Is there any opportunity? But there are a number of things we can do. The country needs a sports museum, for example, our rich sports history. There are buildings there that could house the sports museum. We don't have a museum to slavery, for example. And this is there's a great house, a part of a slave plantation. So there are opportunities that NHT can use in assistance in collaboration with other government agencies and the private sector, public-private partnership if need be, to look at it. These are options we are looking at now as to how to use the building while we await the build-out of the Emancipation Type Park. So the poor people and the rich people and the middle classes can come and have a facility just as the people in Kingston. We don't believe that Kingston is Jamaica and that only Kingston should have the best facilities.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Yes, backtracking.
First of all, Mr. Brown is right. I'm a banker and he's not. If you have a, if you have,
and I'm a union man and you're not.
Gentlemen, please.
Precisely. If you have a property that you, by your own admission and by the valuation I've seen by Delissa, states the property at 12.7 million, the land, and you now say that all you're buying is the land, and you pay $180 million.
Why are you not saying that?
$180 million for the land that is valued at 12.75 million. Then you stretch incredibly.
I told you the land and the
even
building, and
further.
you keep saying land. Why are you
Mr. Brown, please have the decency to listen.
No, you must have the decency to tell the truth.
You just don't have the decency to listen. Can you just listen? You said that you want me to hear the points. Well, listen to my points. The points that you're talking about is that you refuse to see that this is actually looking like a bailout because of what the money was used for, and it could not be that you pay $180 million for that caliber land in nowhere in Trelawney. So it doesn't make any sense to ordinary people, especially when 47%
the land is adjacent to the Royal Sun, a five-star hotel on the North Coast.
Spend the NHT money like this, and of course you can't listen because you know that half of the reasons that you're now giving were never seem to have been considered. You're trying to contrive them as you go ahead.
You know,
that there were a bad decision was made. It's easy to recognize it and move on.
The records exist as to why we bought the property. I'm not contriving anything. The Auditor General has those documents in her possession, and she will make her determination. You see, again, I come back. You're not stating the truth. The Royalton, a five-star hotel, where Trelawney Beach Hotel used to be, or the Starfish Hotel as it used to be called, that the Outameni is across the road from it, just up the road from it, and you are describing that as nowhere?
And you have land
yes.
up there that
Gentlemen?
you would sell normally for about $1 million an acre. You go and pay $18 to $20 million an acre.
That is not true, Mr. Hill. The price
Mr. Brown.
We paid on
yes.
one
benefit from that.
Mr. Brown and Mr. Hill?
Dollars.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, please. Mr. Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
Backtracking a little bit to a question I wanted to ask. Were you aware that the initial write-off by the DBJ referred to by the JLP occurred under their watch, and why was that decision taken?
Well, the write-off was, as I understand, not taken under their watch. Mr. Shaw, who was not the portfolio minister at the time, the Prime Minister was, Mr. Golding, said that in fact, if he was returned to government, it would have been he would have sanctioned it, because remember, a write-off decision of that nature is actually made by the board of the Development Bank of Jamaica. However, that's the nature of the business of the bank. The nature of the business of the NHT is not to go and buy a business that they now say is on the land.
Why are you lying?
That is perennially a loss-making entity. That is the problem, because the price you're paying is for a business, not for not for a piece of land valued 9.125 acres of land valued at 12.7 acres. It doesn't make sense.
No,
quickly, gentlemen, we're running out of time. Mr. Brown, we begin with you. Amidst the scandal,
the value of the land.
Mr. Brown,
the value of the land is $12 million, and Mr. Hill, if he wishes, can come and see the valuation.
I have the valuation, Mr. Brown. I told you.
Mr. Shaw made all those nice at his conference.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Hill, we are running out of time, and there is a final question that I would like to get in from both of you. Amidst the scandal and the members of the board resigning, is the NHT questioning its decision in any way, and does this affect the board's credibility? Mr. Brown, you first. Yes.
The members of the board reaffirm our position. We recognize that that was a unanimous decision of the board, and last week, Monday, including Eileen Davis-White and Cavan Gale, who have since resigned, they met and they reaffirmed their commitment to the purchase of the property, not the business, the property, as a wise decision. They stood by it.
Right.
That's the reality that Mr. Hill must face.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, the credibility of the board, is it questioned with this? Yes. Mr. Hill?
One word I have: scandalous to pay that kind of money for 9.125 acres of land.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. That's a wrap on In-Depth. We were joined by Mr. Lambert Brown, NHT board member and government senator, and Aubyn Hill, chairman of the JLP Economic Advisory Council. We'll be right back.